Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the premiere podcast of Craft is King, a new podcast coming to you from Bad Dinner Guests. I am here as Kev. Almost forgot to introduce myself there, with my good buddy and author of soon-to-be two novels, Noah Nichols. He's here to talk with us tonight about his first novel, No Net, a personal favorite of mine. I actually have a big tie to this book. I've it's like a child I've watched grow up. But anyway, I will turn the mic over to you, Noah, and say hi to the people.
Hello, I am Noah Nichols, and I am 34 years old. Suddenly, I think I'm pitching something for Match.com profile. But yeah, I'm a writer. I've been writing for about a year and a half now. I've always kind of written. I've been a songwriter, a musician. What Kevin was referring to is that we used to work together at a bar/grill place, like kitchen.
In hell.
In hell. Short order cooks.
It was a good time.
Yeah. Temporarily, eternally damned.
Yeah.
That's a double negative.
I know what will happen when I go to hell. That I'll just be put back to work at that place.
What was that dude's name? The guy that ran Gooey's Tom.
Dr. Robotnik.
Yeah. Remember when he got in my face one night for no reason? I wanted to hit him.
I do. He actually shoved me at one point.
Yeah, and he threw something at your head.
Towards the end of my tenure there.
I feel like we should digress because we could talk about Gooey's really good.
Talk about that for hours, but yeah, that.
But it's actually it's relevant because honestly, without you, I don't even know you were talking about your short stories and your work as a writer, and at that time I was still mulling over my idea for No Net, the premise, and I remember telling you about it, and I remember specifically saying, well, you should. Because I didn't think anything of myself because I didn't look at myself as a writer, as an author,
Exactly.
And I said, well, you should take this idea and just do it. And I told you about there'd be apps and, you could go in different interconnected stories. And I remember you just bluntly said, well, why don't you do it?
Yeah.
And that really fucked me up. It really changed it. I don't know. It was almost like I was a teenager. And it was like a parent saying, why don't you get up off your ass and stop, smoking, smoking pot. You know what I mean? It was like that. It was put my ass into gear in a way, mentally.
Which
first.
Fair enough. For what it's worth, that wasn't even my intention when we had that conversation. Where I was coming from was I had in the past had people pitch me stories and say, hey, you should write this. And I found a couple of things would happen. One, those people didn't tend to really be, one of two things would happen. One, they wouldn't really be that into the story, and then I would go back to them for some feedback saying, showing them my progression, and they'd be just sort of like, oh, that's cool, man. I don't need to be filled in on this process. So I was just drunk. It was an idea I spit out. Whatever. Leave me alone sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't really give a shit.
I really didn't give a shit. I was just trying to get you to change the subject.
Can we just drink some Yingling?
Yeah. And then the other one would happen is someone who was serious about an idea but wasn't serious about pursuing it themselves would toss me an idea, and I'd take it and I'd do my thing with it, and then they'd be like, well, that wasn't where I wanted to go with it. And
it kind of negates itself in a way.
And then, and so when I hear an idea that's good, but and especially when you were pitching it to me, let's say, for instance, if I had written this story, it would have been extremely different.
Absolutely, because we all have different, minds and approaches. Yeah.
Right, and I know you said before that you were worried about maybe potentially making it too dark or going darker, and that was one of the things that came into my head was I would take Noah's concept and turn it into potentially something that it wasn't really intended to be in your mind.
Yes.
And then through no fault of my own, I could have conceivably let you down. And at the time, I just thought, you had so much passion about the idea that what would have been best for me was to push you, because it's somewhere along the line for me, someone had to do that for me. I remember the conversation that really pushed me over the ledge as far as making the decision that this was going to be what I was going to do.
Yes.
And it was a dinner with a college friend in downtown Chicago, a woman that's making it as a photographer. And she just kind of stopped me in mid-sentence and was like, I've never seen you this passionate about anything. So
that's when it light.
Yeah, and that's exactly. And so that is more of what I was going for with you.
Yeah.
Was trying to pay it forward. Was I was like, here's a guy that I think could do this. So why don't I just encourage you to do it, because it seems like you were halfway to doing it. You just hadn't put pen to paper yet.
Yes. And that's very enlightening, because essentially if you would have taken it and been selfish and been like, oh yeah, I'll take that idea, which a lot of people would have done, and you would have done, like you pointed out, it possibly would have, like, if I would have read it, even if I would have enjoyed it, maybe in the back of my mind, like, oh, I would have been hampered with this internal guilt, like, well, maybe I could have taken a chance or tried to, but I never did. And then I would not be sitting here with, on the cusp of, a second novel coming out, Cat Incarcerated. I mean, it's really fascinating in life how one person with their words can steer you in one of two directions. Because if you would have just taken it, my life would have been completely different. It really is true.
Yeah. So, and that's what you just said kind of is on point, coincidentally, with what you did with your opportunity, was sort of one of the things that I appreciate about the book the most. And again, as I said, I'm going to talk as little about the actual
no
book
spoilers.
As possible, because if I get to talk about it too much, a spoiler may just come blurting out on accident. But the thing that I liked the most about this was you told a good story, but it was, you used the opportunity to try to maybe not even necessarily teach a lesson, but just to sort of make people think, bringing up like a what if scenario that makes people contemplate how they would react in this situation, which to me is one of my favorite things to see in any fiction that I choose to read.
I appreciate that.
That would make me think like, oh, this is a concept that kind of tests me in who I think I am. It almost like sort of makes you, if not question your morality, at least kind of figure out where you align, as opposed to just sort of following a hero along, and just rooting for said hero and being like, oh, I hope he makes it. And I'm just fully invested in this guy or gal.
Absolutely. Well, can I interject about that? What you just brought up is really a few of the bad marks or negativity, I should say, is that a lot of people in their mind, they expected with this premise for whatever reason, even though I stated in the synopsis on Amazon that they're connected stories and people, how little or how much they care after it's gone. People expected, like a clear-cut antagonist or protagonist. And it's like, that's not what it's about. It's not a Hunger Games, like, Divergent shit. Like, it's trying to make you, like you said, think about what's to come possibly, but also looking at yourself now, because, I mean, the truth is we're all, like, looking at our phones and all really, it's like, we're tethered to it.
Right.
It's like the ball and chain, like, and people show, some people in reviews or just feedback to me personally, they feel like an insane desire to express to me that, well, I don't think that would happen. Well, I just don't think people would care. Only teenagers would care. But they're not understanding that everybody's affected by it. Financially even. And I didn't really cover that in the book that much. I mean, I skated around that because that's not what it was about. It's about personal addiction and what we need from it, and what we've been, everything's been so convenient. everything has grown so convenient where it's all now. But if we take that away, then it's almost like people don't even remember what like 1994 was like, even though they're nostalgic for it. It's like shit was way different when like the internet was just coming out.
Yeah.
Like it was way different.
Through your phone line.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if mom was on the phone with grandma,
yeah,
you weren't surfing the web.
Get the AOL like CD with like the 50 hours free.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the. It's very easy for people, and I'll use finances as an example because I think it's decently equivalent. For instance, pretend your phone is your debit card.
Yes, which that's turning into.
It's very, which it already is turning into. It's very easy to, so it's hard to wind up with $80 in cash, and then the next thing you know, by the end of the day, you've got $5, and you not be able to remember spending that money. With a debit card, it's very easy to stop and get gas on the way home. Like say you deposited an $80 check, you went and did some side work for $80. So it's very easy to go. You swipe at the pump for $10.
Yeah.
You go wherever you're going later, you decide to stop and get a drink. You get a drink with a snack, it ends up being $8 or $9. What I'm saying is without the keeping the physical checkbook or having the cash in hand, it's easy for people to be like, oh shit, did I really just spend $65 today? Like how the hell did I spend $65?
It's easy because it's almost out of sight.
And it's become such a secondary natural thing. And I argue the same thing with smartphones, with the internet. People will make that argument that I don't need the internet that much. It really wouldn't be that big of a deal.
Well, that's them convincing themselves.
Yeah, at the same time, they forgot that the only way they got to their new job last month was they used their GPS.
Like Google Maps.
Yeah, they Google Maps it until they memorized the route.
Well,
or, they forget that if the internet went out for everyone, it wouldn't just be them that could no longer act. People, I think, what they think about it is like on a personal scale. Okay, well, shit, it would be a little more convenient because I'd have to physically go to the bank. But if you're talking about a region not having internet, it is all of a sudden everyone has to go to the bank. And the thing is with the internet goes down, the bank doesn't just have a bunch of stacks of monopoly money sitting in the back to hand to you.
Absolutely.
People. So if the financial system, if the internet goes down, your money is essentially gone until it comes back because. They may have access to records. There may be backup servers to records, but what I'm saying is that the cash, only 3% of our nation's currency is in cold hard cash.
Yes.
97% of it is in the internet. So that was
in and of itself. It would just instill chaos within people's bodies.
You could have done this whole book could have just been about that aspect if you wanted to, and you could have filled it.
And I thought of that. Yeah, I thought of that. And if you've noticed, like this, no spoilers either, but. Like there were passages in the narrative which I found interesting to tell the story as in, remember it would go to CDN or the Claire Drake news, like, you know what I mean? Like it would go to where they were watching the news and everybody started hovering around television again to find out the news of when it's going to come back. And then in the narrative I said, well, nobody cares about the planes crashing, the banks, the stock market crashing. And I said that in narrative because all they would care about is when is it coming back. Yeah. And that's what people really would care about essentially is I want it back. And I could have had like an app in NoNet talking about the stock market crash and maybe the guy like a guy hanging himself or killing his family. But to me, that wasn't interesting. It was showing, kind of skirting around that, but also like showing how people are deeply affected on a mental level because they've been so acclimated to being spoiled from, their babysitters, as I referenced in it,
And so you wanted to basically, from what I'm gathering here, is essentially that the money, that would have been the easy part. Like you were kind of
that's what a typical writer would do.
After us more at our base, saying like, forget the money, which on its own would have been enough to ruin most of you.
But we as a people,
like
we're losing contact with ourselves. Like what we are doing together right now speaking, like people would scoff at this and laugh, but it is becoming a lost art. A lot of people think that they're communicating with each other. They're not.
Yeah.
Like last night I was at a show and everybody, there were like 3 or 4 tables and there were groups of people, like 4 or 5 at each table, music, drinks. Yeah, they had all that going on, but they weren't speaking to each other and they were on their damn phone and they were playing Pokemon Go and fucking around. And that's my point I'm trying to make is we're losing what we used to be. And people don't want to see that or they're in denial. Believe me, the internet is like, people are in such denial. And to me, it's just fascinating because I can go without my phone for a week. Like I could turn it off on a weekend and be cool. But then I'll turn it back on and I'll have voicemails from people saying, where the hell are you? Why are you ignoring me? Because people just automatically think you're disrespecting them or ignoring them.
Yeah.
Because you're not responding to a text or calling them back. And it's just because they all assume it's a herd mentality where we all have it. So why wouldn't it be, it's like a beck and call, like it's right on our fucking waist.
Right. And it's,
at all times.
And it also, which I won't go too far into this because that's a whole other can of worms. Yeah. It's a 3-hour episode on its own. It just goes to.
Maybe we should do a part 2 of this.
Yeah. The whole just me of society these days where, you find it, for instance, it's been a while since I've maintained a long-term relationship and that's, I don't want to get too personal or anything with it, but what I've noticed is whether it be me or the other person. No.
I just kidding. I was like Dumb and Dumber.
Right? Yeah, I like it.
No, it was a girl.
I'm off to. No, it was a girl.
Rita Felcher.
Oh man, it's just that so often people fail to even consider any other perspective of their own. They've almost lost the ability to view the world from any other view.
They've domed themselves in their dome. You know what I mean? They put an invisible dome and barrier around them, and even though they don't know that that's what's happening.
Yeah, you'll have someone goes to break up with someone, and then the other person will say, "Well, it's not fair.
Yes,
it's not fair to me and how I feel." And it's like, well, what about this is how I feel.
Yeah,
and how I feel is that I need to go away from this, but I'm somehow a bad person. Because I can't give you what you want,
right?
And that makes it unfair, and that makes me a bad person.
Absolutely.
And it just, I think that is sort of another thing that people maybe would take for granted that haven't read this, or some of the naysayers that would say, "Well, this is an overreaction. I wouldn't react to this book." They're coming from that mentality where they're not thinking about how it affects other people.
Well,
and they'd like to think, we all like to think for some reason we live through life as if it's some movie.
Yes.
We're the protagonist and that we're the good guy. And we always like to apply this filter when like, oh, well, if I was in that situation, like you see with athletes, people talk about, what is his name? I can't think of he's more famous for smoking weed than Josh Gordon.
Oh, yeah.
Browns. I hate when I hear people say, like, man, that guy's an idiot. He could make millions and millions of dollars, and all you have to do is stop smoking weed. And I'm like, dude, the guy saying that to me, he's been working in a kitchen for 12 years of his life, and he smokes weed, and he takes every break at work, he goes out and smokes weed. And I'm like, man, you can't stop smoking weed for 2 days just for no reason. So how can you sit here and say, oh, if I had that, I would stop smoking weed? It's like, dude, you have nothing, and maybe potentially changing your habits would switch. Not that I'm not.
Oh yeah.
Like a pulpit thumping like
a stalwart for
I'm just using that as the example. It could be video games. It could be freaking Twinkies. With something standing in the way of your success, you can't put it down to be like. How can you knock? Like I hate when I see people knock authors or artists being like, man, they have the world at their fingertips. How could they get in a drug problem? And I'm just like, really?
Yeah.
I mean, your cousin has a drug problem and has nothing. Why do you?
That's because a lot of people.
Act like there's a difference there.
Well, a lot of people are holier than thou.
Yeah.
They think that they're better than everybody. But the thing is how can everybody be better than everybody?
And that's exactly.
Think about that.
And I think that's part of the sort of system that we've been, the trickle down, social classes here, where it's like, as long as you believe that there's someone below you, you'll kind of take it on the chin a little bit more above you because, at least you've got someone you can talk down to. The little story I like to use is, dad gets yelled at by the boss and comes home, yells at mom. Little boy comes home from school, mom yells at him to clean his room. Boy goes outside, kicks the dog in the ribs. You know what I mean? It's like you just find the next person in line to pass it down on.
It's trickle down violence and dysfunction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
that's why people feel the need to. Yeah. It's just it's fascinating. Well, it's funny because I think there's like 25 or 26 reviews on the book, and there are about 4 negative reviews, and they all say just the same thing. Like they want to go out of their way to say, there was this one review where the person said like, oh, well, I just think people, if this happened, it would be inconvenient. I'm paraphrasing here, but it'd be like, well, I just think people would, we really just need, nice, hot pizza delivered to our front door. And it's like, and I just thought of how funny that would be if the internet did go out. You'd be like, no, dudes, like, it's cool. Like, we got pizza, man. It's all good. Don't worry. You would get hit. You would get slapped. It's just, really quick, I don't know if I told this to you, but while I was writing the book, I did a very interesting study on my own where I asked my friend Seth if I could go to his page, and he has like a lot of friends, and I would write just 100 of them, and I wouldn't promote anything. I would just say, hey, I'm so and so's friend, and I just want to know if the internet mysteriously vanished tomorrow morning, what would you do, and how would you react? What do you think would happen? And everybody's either with variations of, I think it would be bad for all, but I don't think it would be. But then when it came to personally describing what they would do or how they would react, well, I could live without it. It's totally cool. I wouldn't even care about it. And it's just like, for like 100 people to say that, it really is like, at least staunch alcoholics can say, yeah, I have a fucking problem. Like, you know what I mean? With like, you're talking about people. They've said people look at their phone, periodically throughout the day more than anything else. Yeah,
Facebook, the average person. I did some research actually for
this,
just for you.
Awesome.
So over an hour a day is spent on Facebook per individual. That's about the average. Is about something like 1.2 hours spent just on Facebook. So,
well, how many people at my work? Sometimes I've asked the time, and you'll have a lady dig through her purse or whatever to get her phone out to look for the time. And what's funny about this is I knew what the time was because there's a damn clock on the wall, and I would do a test. I would say, oh, I'm going to ask what time it is and see what they say. If they look over the clock, no, they all go for their phone. They know that the clock's there. See, that's what's funny about it. That right there is an example of how just it's like it's a limb. It's an additional limb.
And if I can extend to this, because I'm so glad you just brought this up.
Okay.
Because I find a way somehow to bring this into almost every podcast to talk about, and whatever. I have the sort of argument that we as a people have been essentially brainwashed, and I think the problem is people get scared by that term, and they think of me holding a watch in front of your face and counting to 10 and hypnotizing
or a smartphone because nobody has watches anymore.
Because they do, exactly. Because they don't understand. So many people don't understand the way their own brain works. They just take it for granted that your brain is smart. You can trust your brain. It's doing everything right. And you don't even understand, like, for the instance, the different brain waves, how they function. Like, I'm sure you've been in a situation before, you've been so into a TV show where someone was trying to talk to you that you didn't
block them out.
Didn't even hear me, block them out. Okay. Well, that you're in that state of mind, that's sort of a different state of mind from when you're, say, driving in a car and you're alert to everywhere. Okay, so people can acknowledge the fact that their brain works differently, but then they want to refuse to accept the idea that when you're locked into this brain state that allows you to completely block out all of your surroundings, that any messages that might be coming in subliminally might be actually affecting the way that, so it's like people are, I think, in some ways by this own device being, sort of
manipulated.
It's like a cult mentality.
It really is. Yeah. They can't jump out of their closed mind nature.
Yeah, and
it's impossible.
What you said that was a lot of a buildup for what I was trying to say, and I do apologize.
That's all right.
The background for it was what you just said about people checking their phones to check their time. Okay, that to me sounds like Pavlov's dog right there. Like you've just gotten a point to where if you need it, you check your phone for it, and to me that is awful because we all know, like these days, you have an iPhone, an Android. What else?
There's nothing.
Samsung.
Barely anything else. I mean, those are the front runners.
Okay, so it's just the same as your cable options, where you have 6 companies owning 90% of all television.
Right.
So now you're
it's
down,
conglomerate,
so
just like over.
Wherever, and you're just sucked into this thing. And I'm not sitting here from some. Let's be honest. There's 2 sides to this.
Yes, there absolutely
because we couldn't be doing this right now with any hope of it going anywhere if people weren't addicted to the internet. So we're kind of
well, like I stated earlier, I believe I did, but I mean, we are all like, I mean, we all have it. I mean, you know what I mean? Like a few of my friends have said, like they've taken NoNet in a wrong way. They've read and be like, well, why are you so anti-internet? Well, how am I? Yeah. Like I'm not. I didn't say it was bad. I focus on people's reliance on it. That's it.
I will talk about this subject with you, and then on Wednesday, go on 60 Grit Radio with RJ and discuss why I'm afraid of new concepts of censoring the internet. Because although people are, you can acknowledge
that's what I'm going to explore in the sequel.
You can acknowledge that that we have a problem with something, but still not. It's like, for instance, it will be my same approach to gun control is the same approach to internet control. Yeah. Okay, I think everybody has the right, but it's on you to be knowledgeable, and so it's like where you can't just.
Well, look how they've slowly
I'm addicted to the internet. Like people get addicted to Adderall or whatever. Adderall might help a lot of people, but you can still get addicted. You can get addicted to a good thing and turn it into a bad thing.
Well, I'm glad that you brought this up because they're slowly implementing things to regulate the internet and how free it used to be, like Amazon. There used to be no tax. Now you have to pay tax for things online that you buy online. Well, that never was the way it was. And I'm not going to spoil it for people that have read NoNet, but obviously, but the funny thing is you're one of the only people that do know where I'm going. Because I told you,
and that's why I have to let you drive this.
Yeah, I'll drive this car, power steering. But the thing is, on the sequel, which I can't even tell the name of it because it actually gives it away of what my approach is going to be here. But really, so the main question of NoNet that I wanted people to ask themselves, was what would I do if this happened in this scenario? But the sequel is going to be an even bigger question about yourself, your own identity, and what you're going to do. Because I'll just say this. There were some people, even the people that gave negative reviews, they still wanted to know what was going to happen. Because that was another thing. They're like, well, I don't even understand why it's gone. I want explanations. You will get that in the second one. There are going to be a lot of answers, and the world's going to open up even more. But it's going to ask a certain question that I find even more fascinating and interesting to ask the reader and people as a whole than the first book. Because it really digs into your psyche.
And yeah, not to be a bigger tease, but I am really excited for the follow-up, because that is the one that is
the floodgates open.
It's really gonna ask even some more interesting questions,
and the way the world's going, not to spoil the main premise or the plot line, the twist, but I think it could happen sooner rather than later, how things are happening. So,
and this is why, and I'm gonna take this little opportunity here to kind of take us off course here for a second.
Sure.
Because since we've gotten into that sort of parallel, and I know that that's something that we both have in common as writers, is our intention to sort of, for instance, the work that I have out there, a lot of it is in its own universe in the future that tells sort of parallel stories, kind of like warning stories.
Yes,
it's,
cautionary tales.
Cautionary tales, which is what I believe this is. I think, in my opinion, that's what No Net is. At least it's what I took it as when I read it. The sort of the vibe that I got was, this is trying to tell me something or show me something about myself. And, having it come from the different perspectives the way that you did, different characters, it allows it for a wider audience to have an opportunity at any certain point in the book to put themselves in a character's shoes.
Yeah.
Whereas, they might not be able to relate to every character, but there's probably one that is relatable. And it just sort of reminds me of your idea for our upcoming podcast that
yes.
I want to at least get mentioned out
Let's
there.
reveal it.
Yeah, because I know we intend to maybe try to have our ground zero of that podcast this afternoon. I know
yes.
we both have loaded schedules.
Episode 0, Billy Corgan in the shirt.
Absolutely, but I'm going to let
people that are over 30 will get that.
Right,
Nobody else will.
Exactly. I want to let you
describe it.
Unveil it because it's your idea. You came up with the name and everything, and I'm just sort of here to help it because I think it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, totally. It's going to be called. I'll just get right to it and just say it's a podcast idea that I had, and it's going to be called Write Strife, and it's about writers that get together and not necessarily talk about the ins and outs of how to market your book or how how to get reviews or just all that cliche typical bullshit. Like I wanted more. There are really no podcasts that I've seen because I've scoured the iTunes store and the podcast world, and there are really no podcasts that have like maybe 3 to 4 writers of varying backgrounds or desires for their own career, and we discuss our passion for the craft, and in different ways, in different avenues, like we discussed earlier on the phone. Each episode would be a certain topic of writing, because there's a multitude of things that you can discuss. I mean, you could have a whole hour episode of word count. You could have a whole episode of, editing, like, self-editing while you write, or do you do it after, and then, hire an editor, like there's so many things that you can speak on. And so basically the goal is, very soon we're going to try to get this going. Well, today we're going to do a trial run.
Yeah, we're gonna do a trial run here probably after the Bread and Circuses premiere.
Yep.
We've got guys waiting on us in the studio to get their premiere episode out, and then we'll be
and another thing
to do that.
Yeah, and another thing I failed to mention is make note of is that my idea would be maybe doing it 2 times a month, and we have kind of a revolving door. Like we would be the anchors, we would, and we would have people coming in, and we could share short stories that we're working on, or talk about, full-length novel. And just, I think it would be a cool way for people, for readers and fellow writers to follow along the path of a writer. It's, in and of itself, because a lot of podcasts really, they focus on the greed aspect of it. Like, well, what can I do to get more reviews, or what can I do to get more money for my book?
Right.
Who gives a shit? All I know is when I die, I want to leave words behind that I'm proud of, or people can think of, in fond, in a respect.
Exactly. My big goal is to be able to just do the work.
Yeah.
I just want to be able to have something that I can leave behind that sort of gives my opinion and my philosophy on things without sort of having to get in anybody's face and
just like a relaxed
feed
environment.
Them my point of view, you know. It's like, well, and I admittedly, I'm a bit of a trickster at times. I will reel you in with an exciting story.
A chameleon, like with literary format. Yeah, like your last idea or your last short story, you know, Coming to Terms, and I was really interested in that. And you should. Can you link that too, like on your thing, like do a little spot, like?
Yeah, I can. I can do that. It will take me a
because I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to spoil it, but I think people would really enjoy that because it's a misdirect in a very smart way to go about it, because you think it's going a certain way. And I kind of don't want to spoil anything. I'm not going to, but
no, that's okay.
It's a very it really makes you. It's thought provoking. Is, you know, hey, you know, anytime you don't want to spoil anything, just do a blanket of thought provoking. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's thought provoking.
Yeah. Just say
I was on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, a bunch of
hyperbole.
Yeah, like a bunch of cliche terms here.
Yeah.
So I did pull it up on the screen.
Okay.
Just to show the title and that we're on Blogger for that, because I appreciate you saying that.
Well, you have quite the just like me, like-minded. We are prescient. You know, we see where the world's going, even when people refuse to do so. Or like, I can't believe how blind people are. I actually did. If you want to laugh. You know, on Goodreads, on author pages, I don't know if you know this, but they do a thing where, you know, people can ask you a question, like they can ask the author a question. Well, what I did is, I don't think you've read this yet, but it's good for a little chuckle. But I ask a question to myself, but I write it in a format of a person that's kind of a naysayer of what I'm going. Like what I'm trying to open people's eyes to.
Okay.
And it's a little question, and it's by a oblivious citizen, and I respond back, and I basically say the reason why I think the internet will be our eventual downfall is the fact that I have 2 working eyes, and I can see that. You know what I mean? Right. And it's like, and there's more to it, but I implore people to go to my Goodreads page, you know, search out NoNet or my name and read that, because I wrote that. I put that in there because I really do want people to understand that. Okay, let's get intricate about it, because we haven't talked about old school, like the 50s, 60s, and let's go 70s, 80s, 90s, when video games came about. Let's say TV. When TV came about, oh, you're a zombie. You're wasting away. You know, your brain is just like deteriorating. Okay. Well, TV wasn't killing you.
Yeah.
Smartphones and games, people are falling off cliffs. People are crashing into trees and dying.
Yeah.
And it's like, I remember when I was a teenager, man, and I was playing a Turok Dinosaur Hunter and Goldeneye on N64, you know? Yeah. And I remember one time I was playing it, and my grandparents came over for like a Thanksgiving dinner, and I remember specifically my grandpa come up to me and saying, you know, this Goldeneye, it doesn't make you want to like kill people, does it? Like, you won't, because at that time the hotbed issue was video games are creating this sort of, you know, psychotic, you know, like people wanted, like they were worried that like our youth would go out and just start shooting people up because they were killing, you know, enemies in a game.
Yeah.
And the thing is what people are really not speaking about is that games themselves are killing people now. Like people aren't killing people over games. Well, they are, but essentially, all I know is, hey, we don't know what happens when we die, right? We don't know what happens. I don't know if you're an atheist, you believe in God, whatever. I'm not here to talk about that. That's a whole other subject. But I will say, if there is a person that judges you, or you go in a room and they like review how you died, or if you weren't supposed to die, there has to be a person that if you're on looking at Pokemon Go and searching for the Pokemon and you fall off a cliff and you die or you crash into a tree and you weren't supposed to die until you were like 80 but you died at 27, they're probably going to look at you and be like, you stupid motherfucker. Like,
probably, yeah. I mean, there's some pretty.
You were supposed to live till 85 years old and have 4 kids.
Whoops. Yeah.
But they're not addicted, Kevin. They're not. Right, they're totally cool.
I can quit it anytime. I just don't want to.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like alcoholism or drug addict, right?
It doesn't sound like a problem at all to me.
No, it's totally cool.
I don't understand what the deal is here.
Yeah. Well, I could do it. I just don't want to do it. Don't worry about it.
Tomorrow is a much better day for me to quit because I have like 3 things going on today. And trust me, man, I'm the king of rationalizing. I can convince myself to do anything. It's sad. It's a weakness I'm working on fixing. But I would like to go ahead and sort of start just kind of wrapping it up with us for this one, if you're all right. We've got the studio time coming up for the next guys, and I want you to be a part of that.
I'll tag in.
That opening not Bad Dinner Guest, a new Bad Dinner Guest show, which is Bread and Circuses.
One last thing, we didn't talk about it. I mean, we said how little people would be affected or how much in the book, but I wanted to talk about an area really quick about an area of the book that nobody talks about. And it's App 10, and it's where it's in the retirement home called Rested Heads. Mm-hmm. And to me, I just want to make a point for people to understand here is, to me, that is the backbone of this whole book because it's the lesson to show that, unfortunately, if we keep going this way, which I don't see it stopping, the characters that were used in that retirement home, they were old fossils. They were on their way dying. You know how I did it. I won't, spoil it or whatever. But unfortunately, we're not going to have any more of those generations. Like years from now at retirement homes, people aren't going to they won't remember a world without it. You know what I mean? Like the reason why when they were on TV and they were like, oh, people are still caring about this. Why does it even matter? Basically, when we're old, we are uniformly, we're used to it. You know what I mean? Like there are people in homes right now that grew up with having to find somebody, having to go out to a party. Having to do things.
We'll be like the last generation that knows that.
Yeah,
at this rate.
I mean, people used to utilize typewriters and write in pen and paper and that is a dying art. And people don't even want to grasp that anymore. They don't care. I mean, I people forget everything. Like, I had people try to point out a plot hole saying, oh, well, I don't understand why text messaging is involved in the world without the internet in your book. Text messaging was around before we had Wi-Fi. It's on a whole other. It works without the internet right now. Yeah. Yes, you have the iPhones and the Droids where they're connected to each other, and but
you can still send it. Yeah.
Absolutely, it's on towers and I pointed that out to people, and it's funny, the people that I pointed that out to weren't 18 or 19 years old. They're in their late 20s and 30s. They lived the life. They should know what it was like.
Right.
But my point is like, we're getting we're drowning in the digital abyss that it's like we're forgetting what life used to be like just 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. To continue to progress as
absolutely.
Things. You don't even have to go back that far. I mean, I think back to the cell phone I had less than 10 years ago.
Oh yeah, was it like a flip phone or like a yellow screen?
It was a gray brick phone with blue backlighting.
Absolutely.
It had brick breaker on it. Speaking of bricks. But yeah, so and that's why, even the timeline in your book, I don't think even is far-fetched. That within another decade.
Yeah, 2026, geez.
If we would progress 10 more years and then all of a sudden lose the internet, I think absolutely this is within the realm of reason.
Well, I mean, 2000, the year 2000 to 2016.
But,
look what has changed in 16 years.
That's why we're starting a podcast together.
To discuss.
To write and co-author some things. That's the other thing. So anybody out there listening that enjoys writing in any form, check us out. Even potentially join us. We're always live.
It's an open door.
You can leave comments. You can send us an email. For now, you can just send it to baddinnerguests@gmail.com. We filter all those through the main site. As far as Craft is King goes, man, I'd love to have you back on as the musician sometime soon with Sean and Jarrell here. Maybe a couple of guys who know.
That's a whole other monster.
That's a whole,
That's another aspect we didn't talk about in knowing it. All the references to specific songs,
Right, yeah, that's true.
Which anybody that reads the book, please listen to those songs, because I planted stuff in there for you to utilize the internet and find things that you may not know about.
Little Easter eggs.
Yes.
Sort of Bret Easton Ellis style with the song drops there. And I want to take a second to say something to our audience, and something that is kind of exciting to me as potential for the Craft is King podcast. A good buddy of mine, Brian Ott, runs the Ott Studios. You know him. He's an artist. He's a painter, and actually, as I talk about it,
great artist.
He's fantastic, and he actually has a live show coming up August 12th here locally in Columbus. It will be at the Creative Plug, which is on North High Street downtown. It's 1253 North High Street.
I meant to go to that. If I have time, I'm going to check that out.
You definitely need to. So I was at his last one, which was a great show. This one is all themed. This is a physical dialogue. And it's a unique series of abstract landscapes, but bodyscapes. So I was actually one of his paintbrushes in this.
Oh, wow.
Those are any Arrested Development fans. I blew myself. I was covered head to toe in Blue Man Group.
It's funny. I know what you meant by that, but I blew myself. I was thinking about that scene from Saving Silverman. What do you want?
Oh, yeah. Nice.
But his art is awesome. I mean, I remember when I came over, a year and a half ago here, and I saw his art was just so captivating and grabbed you.
And he had at the last show, it was all the robot apocalypse.
Oh, really?
Stuff.
How well do those go over? People dig it?
Though, it went really well while we were there. I am now screen sharing, and for those listening, I will put a link in the description on any and all mediums that we're on, because we're on about 7 or 8 different things here now.
Yeah, that's right.
So there will be a link to Ott Studios. You can check it out. Follow him there. Follow us at Bad Dinner Guest. We will be posting reminders about a week out in. But what I'm going to actually attempt to do is do a Craft is King podcast either right before or right after, or
that would be a good idea.
Doing something even maybe from the Creative Plug itself, just as another
why not
to try to and we're going to try to once it's done, or if he wants to if he's down for any live streaming like that. So I'm close with Brian. I'm going to talk and see if there's anything
I have a question
that we can do to help promote his work, because he's a great artist and people need to go out and see him.
Well, on the subject of that,
I want people who aren't in Columbus to be able to view this as well. So.
Yeah. On the subject of that, has he ever done, because obviously I love to support artists and original pieces of art. Has he ever done any work with books, with book covers? Because he could make a lot of money if he educated himself in maybe digital art or even painting.
No, he can do that.
So he knows how to roll.
Yeah, that's something that we would have to talk with him someday.
That's something for Craft is King to discuss.
Right, exactly. Something to discuss for that.
Because he could create a whole portfolio on 99 designs, and he could make a side living so well.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll get him on, and I'll let you ask him yourself.
Okay, cool. I'll be there.
Upcoming episodes. And as far as that, guys, we're gonna be taking off here soon. Thank you for joining us on the
Happy Trails
Network. I want to, if you want to, we'll be continuing this conversation, Noah.
Yes.
Of these topics here up at Bread and Circuses. We've got 3 more guys ready to jump in and get on a podcast with us, and then hopefully, whether it be in the same room or over Google Hangout tonight, we should have 20-30 minutes to do a right strife. We can just pick one topic if you want. and talk about our process.
Maybe, I think the first episode should just be about process.
About process.
Just to learn how we do.
You guys heard it here first.
Process!
Within the day, you'll be catching Right Strife, episode 0, the process. And tune back in here in about
it's the
20 minutes for Bread and Circuses, the premiere episode.
Right Strife, episode 0, the prequel to episode 1.
Episode 1 prequel.
Yes.
Well, Noah, thanks again for joining me. I look forward to having our own thing coming on soon.
Is this where we handshake?
If you ever want to interview somebody else on Craft is King besides Brian, you let me know. This is going to be a revolving door with hosts. I want people who are interested in the topic to interview on the topic. So,
okay, cool.
With that being said,
this is a virtual handshake. We're not shaking hands, but imagine if we are.
I'm sending you an email that says approved.
Okay.
Nighty night, guys.